Welcome to ZoomInData, your go-to channel for in-depth data engineering, analytics, and modern cloud technology interview preparation. In this video, we dive deep into the top 25 CICD in Microsoft Fabric interview questions for 2025, updated as of early 2026. Perfect for data engineers, DevOps specialists, architects, and anyone preparing for Fabric administration, Git integration, deployment pipelines, or enterprise lifecycle management roles. We cover Git integration, Azure DevOps and GitHub, deployment pipelines with stages, rules, version control for notebooks, models, pipelines, environment management, automated validation, rollback, configuration, security, governance alignment, approvals, collaborative workflows, and best practices, all explained in clear, interview-ready technical language to help you confidently ace your next interview. 1. How is CICD implemented in Microsoft Fabric? CICD in Fabric combines native Git integration for source control with deployment pipelines for staged promotion across development, test, and production environments. Continuous integration triggers on commits, syncing code artifacts, notebooks, semantic models, pipelines, while preserving metadata like connections and parameters. Continuous delivery automates deployment through pipeline stages with rule-based validation, approvals, and selective item deployment. Supports both low-code, deployment pipelines, and code-first, Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions, approaches for flexible DevOps workflows. 2. How does Fabric integrate with Git? Fabric workspaces connect directly to Azure DevOps or GitHub repositories, enabling bidirectional sync of JSON-based item definitions. Commit, branch, and pull request operations occur in the connected repo, with Fabric pulling changes and pushing updates seamlessly. Git integration supports notebooks, semantic models, TMDL, PBIP, pipelines, and reports while excluding runtime outputs and large data. Branching creates isolated development workspaces automatically for parallel feature work. 3. How do deployment pipelines work in Fabric? Deployment pipelines consist of stages, development, test, production, with assigned workspaces and configurable deployment rules. Rules define selective item deployment, parameter overrides, and connection switching per stage. Manual or automated triggers move content forward with validation and approval gates. Pipeline history tracks deployments, enabling comparison and rollback to previous stages. 4. How does Fabric support version control? Git integration versions item definitions, JSON, TMDL, with full commit history, branching, and merge workflows. Pull requests facilitate code reviews and conflict resolution before merging to main. Deployment pipelines preserve version context during staged promotions. Savers and duplicate operations create snapshots for iterative development. 5. How does Fabric manage multiple environments? Separate workspaces assigned to each deployment pipeline stage represent distinct environments: dev, test, prod. Variable library and pipeline rules manage environment-specific parameters, connections, and secrets. Selective deployment allows promoting only changed items while preserving stable content. Workspace isolation ensures production data remains untouched during development. 6. How does Fabric automate testing and validation? Deployment rules validate item compatibility, parameter completeness, and connection availability before deployment. Integration with Azure DevOps pipelines enables custom testing, unit tests, data validation, via REST APIs or PowerShell. Notebook testing frameworks, PyTest, DBT tests, run in CI triggered by commits. Pipeline notes and comparison views highlight changes for manual validation. 7. How does Fabric handle code promotion between environments? Deployment pipelines promote selected items or entire workspaces between stages with one-click or scheduled triggers. Rules automatically apply stage-specific configurations, parameters, connections, during promotion. Approval gates require manual sign-off for controlled progression to production. Backward deployment supports rollback by redeploying from previous stages. 8. How does Fabric manage release management? Deployment pipelines provide structured release process with stages, rules, approvals, and audit trails. Version tagging in Git marks production releases for traceability. Selective deployment minimizes risk by promoting only necessary changes. Rollback to previous pipeline stage restores stable state quickly. 9. How does Fabric integrate with DevOps tools? Native Git integration with Azure DevOps and GitHub supports full ARM workflows including pull requests and actions. Fabric REST APIs and PowerShell SDK enable custom CICD in Azure pipelines or GitHub actions. Service principals authenticate automated deployments and validations. Integration with Azure Boards tracks work items linked to commits and deployments. 10. How does Fabric manage pipeline security? Service principals with scoped workspace permissions execute automated deployments securely. Git repository permissions control source access independently of Fabric workspaces. Approval gates enforce human review for production deployments. Audit logs capture all CICD actions for compliance and troubleshooting. 11. How does Fabric support rollback operations? Backward deployment in pipelines redeploys content from previous stage to production workspace. Git revert or checkout restores item definitions to known good commit. Workspace restore point recovers entire workspace state if available. Selective rollback promotes only specific items from test, dev stages. 12. How does Fabric manage configuration management? Variable library centralizes workspace scoped parameters with secure and public variants. Deployment rules map stage-specific values for connections, paths, and secrets. Connection switching automatically updates endpoints per environment. JSON, TMDL files version configurations alongside code. 13. How does Fabric support automated deployments? Deployment pipelines automate forward, backward movement with scheduled or trigger-based execution. Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions use Fabric APIs for programmatic item deployment. Selective rules deploy only changed artifacts, reducing scope. Notifications alert on deployment success, failure. 14. How does Fabric manage artifact versioning? Git commits version all code artifacts with immutable history and tagging. Deployment pipeline stages maintain version context for each environment. TMDL format enables diff-friendly semantic model versioning. Item history in workspace tracks manual changes outside Git. 15. How does Fabric support continuous integration? Git sync triggers on commits. pulling changes into development workspace automatically. Azure pipelines can run tests, linting, or validation on push via Fabric APIs. Pull requests block merges until reviews and checks pass. Branch workspaces isolate integration testing from main. 16. How does Fabric support continuous delivery? Deployment pipelines automate staged delivery with rule-based configuration switching. Approval gates and selective deployment ensure controlled production releases. Rollback and monitoring enable rapid response to issues. Integration with release management tools via APIs. 17. How does Fabric handle deployment failures? Pipeline stops on rule violations, notifying owners via email or Teams. Detailed logs identify failed items or configuration mismatches. Manual retry or backward deployment resolves issues quickly. Alerts integrate with monitoring for proactive handling. 18. How does Fabric manage environment variables? Variable library stores secure public parameters at workspace level with stage overrides. Deployment rules substitute values during promotion, e.g., dev versus prod connections. Key Vault integration secures sensitive variables. Parameterized notebooks, pipelines consume variables dynamically. 19. How does Fabric ensure deployment consistency? Rule-based configuration ensures identical parameter, connection mapping per stage. Git is single source of truth prevents drift between environments. Selective deployment and comparison views verify content parity. Validation checks block incompatible changes. 20. How does Fabric manage access control in CI/CD? Workspace roles control who can connect Git, manage pipelines, or approve deployments. Service principals with minimal permissions execute automated steps. Git repository permissions separate source control from Fabric access. Audit logs track all CI/CD actions by identity. 21. How does Fabric integrate CI/CD with governance? Deployment rules enforce sensitivity label, endorsement, and certification checks. Purview lineage preserved across stages for impact analysis. Approval gates require governance sign-off for production. Tenant policies control Git providers and external collaboration. 22. How does Fabric manage deployment approvals? Manual approval gates in pipelines require designated reviewers before production promotion. Approvers notified via email. Comments capture rationale. Rule-based auto-approval for low-risk changes possible. Audit logs record approval decisions for compliance. 23. How does Fabric support collaborative development? Git branching and pull requests enable parallel work with code reviews. Workspace co-authoring supports real-time collaboration on notebooks, reports. Comments and mentions facilitate feedback in service. Deployment pipelines coordinate team releases across environments. 24. How does Fabric optimize DevOps workflows? Native Git and pipelines reduce tool switching and context loss. Selective deployment minimizes promotion time and risk. Variable library centralizes configuration management. Monitoring and alerts streamline issue detection and resolution. 25. What are best practices for CI/CD in Fabric? Use Git integration from day one with main branch protection and PR reviews. Structure repositories by workspace or domain. Configure deployment pipelines with dev, test, prod stages, selective rules, and mandatory approvals for production. Leverage variable library and connection switching. Parameterize notebooks and pipelines extensively. Integrate governance checks, labels, endorsements in rules. Monitor deployments and audit regularly for compliance. Thank you for watching. If this video helps you prepare for your Microsoft Fabric interview, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your network. Don't forget to subscribe to ZoomInData and hit the bell icon for more in-depth data engineering, analytics, and cloud technology interview prep videos every week. Drop your questions or topic requests in the comments. Let's zoom in on your success together.